Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Tuesday, the 11th of July. I'm Aidan Macdonald, and today I'm joined by Tony Haggerty, the birthday boy Tony Haggerty. How are you, Tony? You all right?
I'm all right, yes. 51 years young, thank you very much, appreciate that. But there you go. As you said off air, still in my prime. I'll go with that, I like that.
Absolutely, Tony, still thriving. Just before I get into it, guys, a wee bit of housekeeping for anybody that's interested. Ticker tape down below has the information. Subscribe to the Celtic Way website to support top quality football journalism covering the club you love. All sorts of variety of content on there, including a premium feature which went live on the website this morning. Tony was talking about there's kind of plenty of good news to be excited about at Celtic. I don't know if you want to briefly talk us through your piece that's went live this morning, Tony.
Oh yeah, I was just talking about the fact that it's Good News Day, like every other day at Celtic, doesn't it? And one of the things that was lost in all of it was the fact that Cameron Carter-Vickers is returned to light training. So I was making I did a piece on that, sort of saying on any other day that would be trumpeted and heralded and shouted from the rooftops. But in the last wee while, we've had Kyogo signing a new deal, Maeda signing a new deal. Yesterday it was Callum McGregor signing a new deal, Brendan Rodgers coming in to replace Ange. The statement from the club saying that their finances were in kind of rude health and significantly more than they bargained for. So all that's kind of offset any kind of bad news, like Jota leaving and Ange leaving. And so I was just kind of making the point that Cameron Carter-Vickers is kind of dipped under the radar a wee bit. The fact that he's back in light training, the fact that he could be back for the first day of the season. So I think that's wonderful news. And then obviously today there's some cryptic messages from the club being put out, hasn't there already, Aidan? We kind of started the briefing at 10:10 to see if there was anything that we could throw up with kind of live in terms of breaking news, but nothing as of yet. But I believe your phone's ready, primed, and waiting for anything that happens, yeah?
Yeah, I will obviously keep an eye on that tweet. For anybody that's not seen it, it was a picture of the sort of training complex where Celtic are in Portugal with five sort of wee emojis with three of them filled in, almost maybe signalling that there could be potentially two contract announcements, or there's two still to come, whether that's today, this week, or the rest of the transfer window. So we'll keep an eye on that. Probably not worth speculating on it too much, Tony, until we get a bit of
No,
confirmation. But if there's
correct.
any sort of announcement while we're on this live, then we'll obviously talk about it. And if it's a significant announcement, such as O'Reilly signing or Hitati or whatever for a contract extension later on, I'd imagine a mix of you, Ryan, and I will be going live to discuss that later on.
I would have thought so. You're allowed to speculate, aren't you? Fans are allowed to get excited and
Oh no, of course.
on their wish list and say what they like, and Twitter's awash with people saying, wonder what it is, and saying, announce Hitati, announce Cameron Carter-Vickers on new deal. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the role of supporters, isn't it, to get carried away and get excited. But it was just real cryptic stuff, wasn't it? As you say, 3 light boxes, two shaded ones, and kind of you're thinking, okay, what's next in the pipeline as the good news days continue?
Indeed, like I say, we'll keep a wee eye on that, and if it does break later on in the day, we'll go live in some form to discuss what's been happening. But talking of potential people signing deals, there's obviously been links with Man United midfielder Donny van de Beek potentially joining Celtic. This comes from reports down south, which suggests that he's pretty out of favour at Man U. It doesn't look like he's got a future there under Eric Ten Hag. As you would expect, there's a lot of clubs interested in a player of his quality. He obviously was a very successful youth prospect at Ajax, one of the many players in the last sort of 5-6 years that they've sold on for big money. I think it's fair to say it's probably not really worked out for him at Man U, Tony. He's just never really been able to get to grips with his time there. A lot of people maybe thought with Ten Hag going in as the manager that would maybe allow him to thrive in the team, but it's just not been the case. I guess before we kind of break down from what we've heard so far, kind of the logistics of the deal, would you be a fan of somebody like that coming in? Obviously, he's clearly a quality player.
Right, I'm all for quality players signing. You know what my thoughts are. You can't get enough good players in your team. What I'm kind of dead set against is this kind of loan, with the fact that you probably wouldn't be able to afford them. We've been burnt before. Celtic have been burnt before with that. You mentioned a name that most people recognise with Rodgers the last time. It was Charlie Masonda. Very, very expensive loan deal that never really happened. And I'd be loath for Celtic to enter into that kind of business, because I thought our business had been conducted impeccably so far. And I'm not doubting the boy's qualities as a player. I think he's a quality player. He's had horrendous injuries at Man U as well, and just not being the player that everybody thought he would be, having come through the Ajax system. But what would be the point to bring him up for a year and then let him go again? And he could probably reinvent himself at Celtic, probably one of the best places to reinvent yourself. And I think he'd be a wonderful player. But unless it was the Jota, Carter Vickers option, loan with an option to buy, if I was Celtic, I'm not too sure if I'd enter into something with Van de Beek that would cost him a lot of money only for a year's service. But if we have a loan with an option to buy, then that completely changes it, doesn't it? And then we see if we can afford them. And again, I'll go back to it. Bringing in a player like that with a full intention of signing him would be another statement of intent, Aidan. But I don't want a costly Charlie Masonda episode. I'd rather not. So my head is, well, my heart's saying, yeah, he's a good player, explore options, but my head's saying no to any kind of loan deal unless it's with the option to buy clause. But can Celtic afford that? Again, is that another way of Celtic sort of saying, look, there is some money in the bank, this is the kind of quality we want to bring in? I like that thinking, but you are taking a bit of a gamble on a player who's not played much football, has he? And people are saying he's injury prone, whatever. Yeah, he has had. He's been really unlucky, but I don't know. It doesn't. I'm not 100%. I don't wake up and think, yeah, Donny van de Beek, that's the man. He doesn't excite me that much. I could be wrong on that. But it's not where I thought Celtic were headed in terms of incomings, and I would rather, if they could, look elsewhere.
I think you probably reflect a lot of people's thoughts there, Tony. There's no doubting the boy's quality. He was phenomenal at Ajax, and a lot of people thought he was going to be the next sort of big thing at Manchester United. There's a variety of reasons why I don't know this is a good move for Celtic. Firstly, we know there'd be no way would Celtic be able to make a permanent transfer at the moment with Van de Beek, with his contract situation, and cause of wages as well. The most likely situation would be a loan, and you'd imagine it would be quite a decent split of the wages Celtic would be expected to pay as a result of that, which would be a significant outlay away from the budget of maybe being able to offer wages to somebody you could sign permanently, such as, if we want to throw a name in, Fabian Rieder, who's been mentioned, who would be a significant transfer fee, but there would be maybe a chance there that he could become a permanent player. So I think that's probably the first reason. Second, injuries, as you pointed out. I think for a player of that age who's had quite a few significant injuries, that is a bit of a worry. You know, it's not like he's at the end of his career. Picking up injuries quite a lot always concerns me, no matter how good a player is. And I think the third aspect, just to return to the loan argument, it would probably be somebody that you couldn't get permanently. It would be a 1 year or an 18-month deal or whatever. So as much as he maybe comes in and does well, you know, in the short term, you're going to have to then replace him again. And how many times have we discussed how that ended up being a bit of a failure of a strategy during the COVID season, the amount of players on loans? As much as maybe everybody was delighted to get rid of him at the end of the season, it showed how much work Ange had to do when he came in terms of recruiting players. That was obviously not good for the squad in terms of how much business had to be done. You don't want to return to that. It's been proven in the last couple of years that signing players on loan who you've got the option to buy, signing Carter Vickers and Jota, passing off in Jens and Abelgard when it was clear it wasn't working, is probably the best way for a club like Celtic to use a loan system. And yeah, everything you said, I was spot on. I believe, not disheartened, maybe the wrong word, because that's a bit dramatic, but it would feel like you're kind of relapsing into old habits if you were to suddenly go and be signing Premier League players on significant wages in a loan deal, which are probably never going to be able to sign them permanently.
What I do like, but is the quality of player you're targeting. The links to the players that might not come to fruition, that's fine, but these are the kind of quality players that will do things in the Champions League. Van de Beek, if given all, an ideal world, would be able to improve that team. But again, I'll go back to it. If they're going to enter into any loan arrangement, it would have to be a loan with an option to buy. And then I think the wages stumble for Celtic. But yeah, I mean, if you're scoping that kind of quality, then I'm all for that, Aidan. And by the way, guys, thank you so much for your birthday wishes. Really appreciate it. I see them all coming down the side, so that's very kind. I got my hair cut the other day, for those that are asking. It wasn't a birthday haircut, so yeah, maybe just styled it differently or washed it or put some product in it, maybe you don't notice before, but there you go, Aidan. But for the more astute of you, it's a new set of glasses that you haven't noticed the past few days, but there you have it. Hey, but there you go. Anyway, back to real business. But yeah, I think, Van der Beek's just one of those. He is a good player, but I would have to be guaranteed that good player come to Celtic. No. And I think it's just a risk. And I know every player's a risk and it's a gamble. I get that, but this is just somebody who I'm not too sure about. And I think, as you said, I think if Celtic are going to, I don't want them to lapse into old habits. So far, so good. It ain't broke. Don't need to fix it. Just keep the strategy that we're on just now. Loan with options to buy, if that's the case, and scouting decent talent, which seem to be happening at the minute.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Tony. It would just worry me, and I can't help but think the reason that Celtic are being linked with him, or people think maybe we've got more of a chance of signing him, is to do with the fact that he is a bit injury prone. So there's maybe not the same option of clubs for Man U to send him to. I believe some of the teams that are also interested, according to these reports, are Wolves, Nottingham Forest, Palace, Sevilla, Nice, and a couple of Serie A sides. So obviously, there's a lot of teams in the top 5 leagues there. Maybe not right at the top of those divisions, but definitely teams in sort of stronger leagues in the SPFL who seem to be interested. But yeah, it's probably one of those ones we'll have to keep an eye on, though. But at the moment, it does seem, firstly, probably a bit unlikely that it would happen at all. And secondly, you would have to look at kind of the positives and negatives of a move like that. I guess we're on the discussion of players for. Sorry, Tony, do you have something else you wanted to?
I made the point. I tweeted out a comment yesterday that said that when Brendan Rodgers came in, that was kind of Celtic, taking it to the next level, acting like a big club. Kyogo, Maeda, and Callum McGregor signing new deals. And I said that's how big clubs operate. They protect what they have, and then they enhance it. And a lot of people most people agreed, but others were saying Celtic haven't done anything. They've weakened the team with Jota going and Aaron Moy retiring. But my point was that there's still plenty of time to enhance it. Celtic are in no rush. Celtic will sign players. Brendan has been given a guaranteed promise of X amount budget, whatever that is. So Celtic are busy just now, but it has to be the right fit, and it will be the right fit because I trust the manager and I trust the kind of way Celtic are going about their business in terms of recruitment. They will bring in the right players, but there seems to be this immediate rush for Celtic to run out and grab, not everybody and anybody. So that's why I think it's wise that they're taking their time, seeing what's out there, and scoping the calibre of player that they will take them to the next level, make the difference in the Champions League. And Van der Beek certainly strikes me as one he's available. Let's bring him in. Take the chance. And I just don't. I think Celtic are beyond that now. You said that they're lapsing into bad habits. I just don't think they want to go anywhere near that. And other people saying, Brendan brought in a few poor players the last time as well. Yeah, he did, but every manager does that. But I think this time it's a wee bit different. I think we are targeting, as the old saying goes, quality over quantity. So, and I'm quite willing to wait for that quality to come in. I'm quite willing to trust Mark Lowell and the lists and what Brendan Rodgers and he are all about and going through this and scoping the players that come in. But mark my words, Celtic will bring in players, but I think it's important, and I said before, that you keep what you have. I think the Celtic could cope with one maybe leaving, another one of the so-called star players, but no more. And if all being equal, I don't want anybody else to leave this summer, Aidan, because as I've said before, we're not sanctioning fire sales. We're trying to build something here. I think Brendan Rodgers trying to build something here. I think the players will want to work with Brendan Rodgers, see what he can build, because the manager's promised he's going to be here for 3 years. So I think, this is another evolution of Celtic. They're constantly evolving. And now Brendan Rodgers is taking up the managerial cudgels and will evolve this team. So it doesn't involve selling all your best players. Jota's different because he was offered head-turning sums of money. So that's fair enough. He can legislate. He can't legislate for that coming out of left field. But I think Celtic are going to enhance that squad with quality, and it's just picking the right time and the right moment and bringing in the right player. And I think that's what they're doing just now, because they have been burned before in those kind of situations with Charlie Masonda and others. So I'm perfectly happy to wait and see. I'm not in a rush because the season doesn't start till August the 5th. I know we're talking about bedding them in and all that, but the Champions League doesn't. Group stages don't start till September. Plenty of time, Aidan. Chill is the kind of phrase I would use. Celtic will bring in players, they will get it right, and I'm excited to see what happens.
I think as well, Tony, they'll be wanting to trim part of the squad. There'll be guys there they'll be hoping to move on, whether it is a transfer fee, paying them off, or probably the worst case scenario, more guys going out on loan again. But somebody like, Sorrow, Ayeti, James McCarthy, whether or not the club can get them out the door and get recoup a bit of a fee, I don't know, but I'd imagine they'll be keen to get that moving over the next couple of weeks. And I think in terms of players you definitely want to be keeping, somebody who's kind of been in the headlines over the last couple of days, and you'd pointed out to me off air, Tony, Matt O'Reilly is being linked with a move to Real Betis. Obviously, we're not sure in how concrete exactly those reports are, but thought it was worth touching on because there's been a bit of discussion about it. Sorry, Tony. I was just going to say, obviously he's his top player. We don't want to lose him. I think it's 3 years he's got left on his deal, so we don't want to be losing somebody of that quality right now. He gave an interesting interview. I know people were discussing last week, talking about Brendan Rodgers and maybe the differences between him and Ange in terms of their coaching style, the way they are around the training ground. And I think a lot of fans are thinking he could be somebody that would thrive under Rodgers. So maybe he'd be somebody to be included in these hopeful contract extensions. Tony will need to keep an eye on that. But I think we all want Matt O'Reilly to stay, don't we?
I'll say 2 words to that. James Maddison. Brendan Rodgers improved him no end, and he got his multi-million-pound move to Spurs when he was at Leicester. I see Matt O'Reilly being a James Maddison type in this Brendan Rodgers Celtic team. There is no way that Celtic would sanction a move or let Matt O'Reilly leave the club at this juncture. Matt O'Reilly's got too much to offer. He's an absolute baller. And 3 years on his deal. I wouldn't surprise me if Matt O'Reilly was one of the ones that signed a new deal. One of those shaded boxes. Could be wrong on that, but hey, we're allowed to speculate. But I think holding on to a player of Matt O'Reilly's skill and calibre is vital to Celtic, because I think Brendan Rodgers could improve him no end. He did it with Maddison, and that's the thing with Brendan Rodgers. You can make already exciting and cracking players better, and I'm more excited to see what happens with Matt O'Reilly under Rodgers than most players there, because there was you have to say there was a dip in Matt O'Reilly's form, but he played a hell of a lot of football, didn't he? And he also deputised for Callum McGregor when Callum McGregor was out absent, and he was excellent. So I just think that there's a lot more to come from Matt O'Reilly. He was disappointed himself with his goals and assist records. You saw his celebration when he scored his first goal of the season. It was more out of relief than anything else, wasn't it? But I genuinely think Matt O'Reilly's a player. There's isolated moments of Matt O'Reilly's skill and highlights reel that the pass through for Jota to score the dink over McLaughlin in the 4-0 game against Rangers. Instinctive, planked the ball down, and there it was. A wonderful pass. So his Celtic career's full of moments like that, and he can score given the chance. So I just think that in Rodgers' case, Rodgers says this is a player I can get on hold of and turn them in to someone who's put up there that he's got the most assists. So there you go. I'd forgotten all about that. He actually has the most assists. So that there is the nuts and bolts of an excellent footballer there. I said before, you're never ever the finished article, are you? But I think Brendan Rodgers can polish the rough edges of Matt O'Reilly and turn him into a real diamond, which is why I want him to stay. And Real Betis can do one. As the saying goes, Aidan, they can do one, can't they? Not interested. Celtic shouldn't be interested either.
Yeah, I would completely agree, Tony. Unless there was a sort of Jota level deal that was coming round that he couldn't refuse and it was money that maybe the club couldn't refuse, I wouldn't be wanting him to move on anytime soon. as you mentioned, the assists, some of his touches are phenomenal. He's just he's one of these players, probably a bit like Hatate at times, that the game seems to come so easy to him in terms of the way he moves the ball and the way he understands the space. I think that we would like him to improve, and this could be part of the rough edges you mentioned, I'm sure, Tony, getting some more goals. Now, I can understand last season he was having to play in that sort of number 6 position for a significant amount of time, where your role there is goals and probably even assists don't really come into your role there. It's protecting the defence and moving the ball out quickly from the back. Sort of joining up the midfield with the defence and also the attack to an extent, but it doesn't really involve you being in and around the box and scoring. I think you'll see like Cal McGregor, he was obviously very good last season, but he was hardly top of the scoring charts when he was fit, just because the role he was playing, that's not what's expected of him. So I think O'Reilly for his goals can maybe be forgiven. I think it was something like 18 games he played in that position, which is quite a large portion of the season. He might have burned out a wee bit at times. I think him and Joe Hart were the only two individuals that was involved in pretty much every game last season. In fact, no, that's a lie. Joe Hart obviously didn't play against Hibs in the game Scott Bain was playing. Forgot about that one. So Matt O'Reilly, then he was the only one involved in every single game last season. That's a lot of football to be playing, regardless of. I know he's young and he's very fit, but I think regardless of that, is probably not something you'd want to see repeated every season. I think it was forced at times with Callum McGregor's injury, of course, and Ange wasn't really wanting to put Abelgard in there, McCarthy obviously, etc. So O'Reilly had to play quite a lot, but he's a phenomenal talent, Tony, and somebody who I think Brendan Rodgers might look to potentially build his team around.
Exactly when Ange Postecoglou looked at Abelgard, who was a natural 6, wasn't he? He turned to Matt O'Reilly and told him he could do that job, and he went into a position that was alien to his nature, and he excelled.
In the Champions League as well, Tony, he was playing in that position.
You know, and no spitting at the dummy, no, I don't want to do that, or it's, you know, it's not, it is alien to my nature, I can't. He just went in there and he did it, and he was really excellent. And so I think a lot of Celtic supporters saw there was other strings to Matt O'Reilly's bow, but Matt O'Reilly's young enough, his time will come in terms of getting that big money move. He can go wherever he wants. If he gives Celtic another couple of years, or at least a year under Rodgers, I think seriously he'll be able to go anywhere. I think he would set his sights higher than Real Betis. I certainly would if I'm Matt O'Reilly. But as I say, I think it's an exciting time to be at Celtic, and he seems very level-headed. And like all young players, I'm sure they are maybe saying to their agents, see what's out there, because it's only natural, isn't it? But I think he's a vital cog in the Celtic machine, and Brendan Rodgers will see that too. Brendan Rodgers, as I said, can turn excellent footballers into even better footballers. That's something that he's got in his locker, and he has proved that in the past. And that's why I think it's a real important and crucial time for Celtic, because their trajectory is hopefully on the upward curve again. So if they're dominating domestically and they want to go into Europe and make a real fist of it, then guys like Matt O'Reilly, Hatate and Cameron Carter-Vickers, McGregor, Maida Kyogo, it stands to reason these guys have to be there to help them in that mission and that quest. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of noise surrounding Matt O'Reilly. Doesn't matter, it's just noise. I think Brendan Rodgers is the very one, which is another reason why I think bringing in Brendan Rodgers would help convince these guys your future's here, your immediate future. So I really do. I think Matt O'Reilly, I think the world of Matt O'Reilly. I think he's an excellent football player. The way he just said before, certain people can see the game in pictures, you know, and I call them snooker players on a football park. They're thinking 3 moves ahead, know where the ball is going to end up. Kyogo's a bit like that. Matt O'Reilly's certainly like that. You know, they just see things and they see situations develop and they try and make things happen. And more often than not, it does. And that's a gift. That's a talent. You can't really coach that or teach that. But when you have that, you can always enhance and develop it, can't you? Develop it more. So I think Brendan Rodgers will be keen to work with Matt O'Reilly And if you look at the example I gave you, James Maddison, who you saw at Aberdeen, had the raw talent, didn't he? Had the raw ingredients. You saw bits and fits and starts of it. What does Brendan Rodgers do? Turns him into, I think he went to Spurs, was it for 50 million? Something like that. So I think Matt O'Reilly's another one of those who, I think if Brendan Rodgers gets his claws into him and really refines him, then he could command not a similar fee as James Maddison, but certainly a Jota-like fee, Kieran Tierney-like fee, if and when he does decide to leave Glasgow.
Yeah, I think Matt O'Reilly's somebody who's got a kind of unlimited ceiling, really, in terms of where he can go. I think the fact that he would kind of count as a homegrown player for teams in England as well is going to be a positive for him in terms of clubs always wanting to fill that quota. Not that he would want to go down there and kind of just be a bit part player. I'm sure he'd want to go there and be one of the main men for whatever team it would be, but I think that's probably something that will definitely help his advantage if he was to move to a team down south. But yeah, I would want Celtic to be pulling out all the stops to keep him. You seen him at that Champions League level last season, particularly when he was getting played out of position. He looked relatively comfortable, which is not easy at that level. And if you can conduct yourself on the Champions League stage, and I'm sure he would have no issue adapting to a top 5 league. But hopefully it doesn't come to that anytime soon, Tony, because we would delighted to keep him. And if we can get him signed up to another contract, then even better. But Celtic should still be in a strong position with him this summer, regardless of what happens.
Timing's everything. You've got to board that train when it comes along, but just don't think that train's coming along yet for Matt O'Reilly. Plenty of interest. I think the player himself would want to go into the Champions League and try and excel again under a different manager, under a different philosophy, a different tactics, different style. And yeah, there's a comment here, Wagwan, more or less saying what I'm kind of saying here. Oh, can't flick the comment up for some reason. Well, there you go. He's saying Matt O'Reilly will excel under Rodgers. He is his bet for Player of the Year if he stays this year. I don't think that's the worst shout ever, to be fair, Wagwan. That was kind of what I was alluding to there. I think he will excel under Rodgers. I just think so highly of him. And if he can do to Matt O'Reilly what he did to James Maddison, Celtic have got a fantastic footballer on their hands, or an even more fantastic footballer on their hands. Because, as I say, I think the world of him already. He's a player that makes things happen. And, yeah, I'd say lots of interest at the minute, but Celtic should just fend off any kind of interest right now. And I think, reading between the lines, Matt O'Reilly seemed quite excited at the thought that Brendan was here, didn't he? So, again, I'll go back to that. I think things like that help keep your team and your players sticking around.
Absolutely. Matt O'Reilly, I'm sure, is somebody who's thinking, I've got the chance to work with Brendan Rodgers, however long it's for. He can improve my game. The obvious example, as you mentioned, James Maddison. And this is another positive of bringing somebody like Brendan Rodgers in. You're seeing a lot of guys signing long-term deals that, we wondered about Kyogo, whether or not he was going to join or not, but not join, sorry, re-sign or not, in terms of making his deal at Celtic go on a bit longer. And you'd have to think that conversations with Brendan Rodgers have played a significant part in that. If Matt O'Reilly hopefully sticks on for at least another season, then you'd imagine Brendan Rodgers coming in, a coach of his calibre, will have played a part in that as well. So, yeah, that's probably another positive of somebody like Rodgers coming in, which I know we discussed at the time, but I want to just touch on that. I guess in terms of other, I think in terms of probably something else it would be important for us to look at would be Callum McGregor. It was sort of kind of maybe a throwaway comment he touched on in his interview yesterday, just talking about the future of the club and how he wants to spend. It's pretty much been confirmed now, unless something mental was to happen, he'll probably be at Celtic for pretty much to the end of his career. And he mentioned that Lennoxtown, the club's sort of doing some reinforcements to Lennoxtown, or refurbing it, I should say, in certain areas. Obviously, we've not really had any specifics, and as far as I could see, that was the first mention of that being the case. I don't think it was really public knowledge before then, but what do you think they'd maybe be looking to improve there, Tony? Is there anything maybe you've heard or things that you've thought yourself that they could be worth improving on over the last couple of years?
I think did Ange not want an indoor facility at Lennoxtown?
Yeah, Ange mentioned that a couple of times, yeah.
I think that's been mooted. So and I think that was part of the deal which was going to make him stay, wasn't it? That had been granted. So I don't know if that's kind of what Callum McGregor was alluding to, that they've still got the all clear to build an indoor facility at Lennoxtown. I mean, the facility at Lennoxtown is terrific, but if you can make it even better by building a state-of-the-art indoor facility as well, then the Scottish weather, unpredictable at best. So yeah, I think Andy had asked various demands about Lennoxtown, didn't he? And he was granted them. So I don't see why, if they were being granted under Ange, that they wouldn't get the green light under Brendan Rodgers, because I'm sure he would be of the same ilk, that if these things were promised to the man he succeeded, then he should get them as well, or reap the benefit of that. So I'd heard that was one of the ones I'd heard, the indoor facility. I don't know about other things, but what was there not also talk about refurbing Barrowfield for the women's team, stuff like that as well?
Yeah, there was. You'd imagine maybe that probably plays into what McGregor was covering as well, Tony, as a sort of general thing.
Yeah.
And the B probably for facilities for the B team to maybe
For the
use
B
as
team,
well.
yeah.
That under Ange, the two teams got closely aligned, and I'd be very surprised if Brendan Rodgers wasn't wanting to continue that, because it's effective for players moving up to training with the first team, even if they end up not making it. If it's even to make up numbers in sessions, them being up to date and the intensity is really important. So could be something to do with that as well. But that's another positive to hear. I think it's worth touching on that when Rodgers was at Leicester, they got the significant fee for Harry Maguire not long after he joined, and it led to spending a significant money on, I think it was a brand new training ground. And I think in the end that kind of might have played a part in the budgets being restricted, but in terms of transfers, but you'd have to imagine long term that it's also a positive having world class training facilities. So it's definitely something that Brendan Rodgers is a big fan of. He knows how important it is. He obviously kind of I think he was involved in the surface getting changed at Celtic Park slightly.
He was
kind of making it more of a hybrid type surface. And I think it was the famous comments he was talking about the park being diseased, etc. So he's obviously somebody that pays quite close attention to these things, as you would expect when he's coached at the top level at Liverpool, etc. So it'll be interesting to hear. I don't know if we'll get maybe a wee bit more info on that on social media, but I thought it was just kind of worth touching on.
But it's the attention and that minutiae detail, Aidan, that makes Brendan Rodgers the elite level manager that we think he is. Not just content to think Celtic's a big club with they've got a decent enough training facility. No, let's make it the best. Let's make it the best that Celtic can be within their financial parameters. So if that means adding bits on, if that means getting hybrid grass for the actual Celtic Park playing surface, then be the best that you can be in all walks of life representing Celtic, the best pitch in the country, the best training facility, all of this, because these are all things that augur well for the future. It's not just short term, this is long term. It's all part of your planning and your succession plan. So these things are really important. And I love the fact that Brendan Rodgers is all over stuff like that, and long may that continue. And I think Ange, he wasn't au fait with it because Brendan was here before. So but Ange was saying, okay, this is what I need to take this club to where it wants to go. And that was part of his thinking before, obviously, he quit in the summer to go to Tottenham Hotspur. That's fair enough. But I think these things are of paramount importance for any club. Again, going back to the whole big club mentality, and every walk and every way of life. When you're at Celtic, you act like a big club, so you do what big clubs do. You install those facilities, you get what managers want, because they're not saying it for a laugh, they're saying it for a reason. We can improve if we do X, Y, Z, and it's not a case of just turning up, and training and going home. There's all sorts of things that the players can do after training if they have like gyms and all, the best gyms and access to the best kind of facilities. Rest and recuperation's a big part of football now. So you want to have the best technology at your disposal, the best machines, and the best. Cameron Carter-Vickers is rehabilitating just now, so you want to have the best kind of gymnasium there and all those kind of things that help that. and obviously he's ahead of schedule. So why is he ahead of schedule? Because he's probably been doing various things. So yeah, I'm all for that, and I'll leave that in the hands of the people that know best. So Brendan Rodgers clearly knows best, but as you say, it's a nice wee insight with Callum McGregor telling you that about how everybody's thinking. Everybody seems to be on the same page. Really going back to one of our original topics at the start, or points of discussion about the whole good news thing. It's all feeding into each other, isn't it? In all walks of Celtic, not just players and first team staff. It's the kind of spaghetti junction of ideas and things that emanate from that, and that, I guess, revamping or making your training facility and revamping Barrowfield and all that feeds into that too.
Yeah, absolutely. It just seems once again that the club are moving forward in a variety of ways, and that's only positive for all about sort of trying to bridge that gap slightly in Europe, making sure you're also extending your dominance in Scotland and having top training facilities, which obviously Lennox Town already is, but you can always improve these things, can't you? So the fact that there is this sort of significant income at Celtic at the moment with Champions League money, and even more with Jota, which they probably couldn't have accounted for even a month ago, they were going to be getting the funds in for that, even if somebody else moves on. So, yeah, it's good to hear that Lennox Town and potentially maybe Barrowfield is being sort of revamped a bit. So that's all positive. I think we'll leave it there for today, guys. Thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for getting involved as usual. Tony, happy birthday again. Thanks very much for coming on, mate.
Thank you. Appreciate that, guys. Thanks for your comments. I was reading them all coming down the sides. You are very, very kind. I appreciate it. So does wee Paddy. He's lying there sleeping, but there you go. It's the best. That's the way we like him. But no, I'll try and enjoy my day, even though it's a working day, Aidan, eh? But hey, I'll see if the boss man will cut me some slacky. But hey, have it. Yes, I will enjoy my day. Thank you, and thank you for all the kind wishes. They do mean a lot. Quite humbling, really, when you think about it. But yeah, enjoyed that. That was good. And strap line along the bottom, Aidan, you tell them, go on.
Yeah, guys, as Tony mentioned there, you can support top quality football journalism, covering the club you love. Sorry, that includes features such as the one that Tony discussed at the start of the video that's went online today, talking about how there's kind of plenty of reason to celebrate at Celtic, the good news keeps coming, etc. To get yourself involved in that, you can go to www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Tony, cheers again. Obviously, one of us, or a mix of us, of you, Ryan and I will be back maybe later on today, maybe tomorrow, talking about the sort of contract situation after that teaser that Celtic had. Also, there'll be updates on that on social media, on Twitter, etc., with all the sort of latest information. But if there's nothing else on that today, I think you and Ryan will be back tomorrow for the briefing. So stay tuned for that, guys. Thanks very much, and we'll see you later.